Hey, welcome to the Blissful Biz show, video and podcast. So excited you're here. Today I have a super special guest, Wanda Badwal. We met, I think, 2016 or 17 in Bali. We have been working together. I visited her in Portugal. She's really a dear friend of mine. And she's also a really, really inspiring yogipreneur. She runs a online yoga studio, yoga teacher trainings, written already 2 books, has a podcast. And yes, she's just really, really inspiring. I can't wait for you guys to meet her. So let's get started. Hey there, welcome to the Blissful Biz podcast. I'm your host, Susanne Reike, here to help yoga and wellness entrepreneurs build a thriving online business. If you're ready to make a bigger impact and earn money online, you are in the right place. Each week you learn about websites, digital products, social media strategies, and what's working now to build your online business. And now let's get started. Wanda, welcome to the Blissful Biz podcast.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Susanne.
I know.
I'm very happy to be here with you right now.
It's about time, right? I can't believe that I've already had the podcast for 2 years. And yes, we've never really had you on here because I think you're like one of the first yoga teachers that I actually really got to work with.
Yeah. It's true. I was also thinking like how long we actually know each other. I think it's like 6 or 7 years even.
I think it was 2016 or 17. Yeah. In Bali.
It's quite a while already. Yes, we met in Bali.
And
so
it's
much
really weird for
then.
us. Yeah, it's so weird for us to speak English together because we're both from Germany, but we'll do our best.
I actually enjoy it. I have to admit, I prefer the English language for the German. I think so many things you can say much easier in English and much more direct. And I really like to speak English, so I'm happy to.
Amazing. Yeah, I get it. I love speaking English, reading English. And I think especially when you're teaching yoga and you've done all your trainings in English, it's so weird to switch to German, right? So we can talk about that in a little bit, but I would like to start with you. Just like introduce yourself. Tell our listeners what you do. I think not everybody knows you, and just a little bit of your backstory.
Mm-hmm. Where to start? I'm Wanda Badwal. I was born in Germany, even though I don't feel typically German, I would say. I feel much more like a citizen of the world. I lived in Bali for 3 years where Susanne and me met. Now we just recently last year moved to Portugal. I'm working as a yoga teacher. I started doing yoga, I think 15 years ago, started the inner journey, the inner path of therapy, coaching, meditation, maybe like 25 years ago. So I was like 15, 16 when I did my first silent retreat, when I started looking inwards. Even though my big dream was, before I committed to this inner path of yoga, of self-reflection, to become an actress. So I studied acting, dancing, and singing right after school. I was a long time working as a model. And so that was a beautiful opportunity to finance my life. As some of you might know, working as an actress is not financially very rewarding. So the modeling was for sustaining my life in Berlin for quite a good while, and I was quite successful as a model. But in the age of 27, I was struggling with that very superficial world and this very externally focused world, and a lot of judgment and comparison and Yeah, so I had lots of self-worth issues, and I felt all the time I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough. And that was, in that childhood wound, and the job of being a model and actress actually fed into that wound constantly. As an actress, as a model, you have to deal with rejection. So you have to be okay with constantly being rejected, and that I didn't take that easy. I don't know who can take it easy, but I didn't. And many actors, models, they start drinking, they start taking drugs, to try to deal with that comparison and rejection and all that pressure that is put onto you in that world. So everything we see, in the magazines, this glamorous life, and is actually it can be very I think we all know it now from, documentaries of Lady Gaga and stuff, that it can be very lonely, that many of these, stars are dealing with depression. And so, yeah, so I was actually on a point when I was 27 when I hit, a wall, or you can also call it burnout, where I really felt burned out from that life that I was living in Berlin, constantly running to castings. I was doing yoga for quite a while then. So that was my balance. That was where I was, getting some energy. And I was really at a point where I asked myself, like, why am I actually doing this? Like, because I actually loved being an actress. But there's a lot to that job that is, very, very frustrating, and a lot of waiting, and a lot of, it can be very draining. So I was there, and then I did a Ayurvedic so I took myself out of my life. I said, okay, I take a break. I did an Ayurvedic cleanse for 2 weeks. I went into an Ayurvedic clinic, and that was a starting point of letting go of an old self, letting go of my old dream, and really committing to my inner path, to my spiritual path. And I started right away becoming a yoga teacher, did my first yoga teacher training in Berlin back then, and right away started teaching and really felt in my purpose. And then I realized, well, maybe the yoga that is taught in the West is very physically based, and I like to dive more into the deeper philosophy of yoga and the energetic work and meditation and tantra. So yeah, and then I felt I want to go to the East, and Bali was calling, and went to Bali, totally fell in love with Bali, which is not so hard to do, and decided to move there. So I moved there alone, which was quite a brave step. And and then I took 3 years diving deep into inner studies to continue my inner work, lots of healing, lots of transformation. Bali really kicks your ass, like energetically speaking, like it can really accelerate transformational processes. That's at least my experience. And it did. And I learned a lot. I studied a lot. And it was a very, very strong and beautiful time in my life. And I felt also I want to, everything that I learned, I want to bring it back to the West, to Germany, and to Europe. And that's what I did. And I came back 5 years ago. Now we're in Portugal. That's a little bit about my story. So as I said, I work as a yoga teacher. I have an online yoga studio that I built in COVID. I've written 2 best-selling books. I educate yoga teachers since 5 years. So I also give teacher trainings. I actually do a lot of different things. I love to express in different creative ways. I also have my own podcast. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you so much for sharing a little bit more about your story. There's so much that I can absolutely relate to, especially, of course, the Bali part, right? So I went also to Bali to do my yoga teacher training. I never really dove in so deeply into teaching yoga. Did you feel that right from the start? Do you think it's maybe like part of your personality that you go all in when you make a decision to do something?
I think, well, I know many people that, wait until they start teaching, or they feel hesitant, or feel shy to teach right away. I always advise my students, teach right away if you really want to do it. Otherwise, you do another training, you never feel ready. But I also think if it's part of your purpose, if it's easy for you, you're going to do it. So for me, it was very easy to do it, and it feels very natural. So, and when I did it, when I started teaching, it felt right away like, wow, that's what I'm meant to do. Like, that's so easy. And like, compared to what I was doing before, being an actress, modeling always felt very easy as well. Acting felt very, very exhausting. And not saying that I don't have talent being an actress, but this whole industry and the casting and the preparations, and that was very draining. And I think it was not part of my purpose. It was not, even though I thought it might be. With my personality, it's not, because you have to be very, I would say, have a thick skin.
Yeah, that's what I would think.
Yeah, not being so sensitive about, how people look at you at a casting, energies in the room. I'm very sensitive to energies, like how people, I can even sometimes hear people thinking, like I hear when they look at me, like what they might think. Like I'm very, and I take that, or I took that back then very personal, and I had no tools to, keep my own space and even protect myself. And so I was like feeling constantly a bit lost in that world. So for me, it was not my purpose. And I think when we are doing something that's meant for us, it feels easy. That doesn't mean that it's not work. And I have days where it doesn't feel easy to teach as well. But in general, it feels, what I do, everything I do feels quite easy and in flow, you can say.
In alignment, probably.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Did it take you a while to find your voice as a yoga teacher? How did that evolve?
Yes, it definitely took a while. And I think it's continuing to change.
But that's a good thing, I think.
Yeah,
you're always evolving and growing, right?
Yeah, and I think we sometimes, the human mind tends to think about humans as a fixed being, like that's who you are. Like, no, we are constantly transforming and changing, even on a biological level. Like thousands of cells died last night, and when I look into the mirror, I see the same person, but I'm not you. And that's like, and I think we can allow ourselves more to change, and we are allowed to change. We are allowed to change our opinion. We are allowed to change our expression of teaching yoga. We are allowed to change what we want to teach, what we want to serve and express into the world. And that's my understanding also of purpose. It can have, for example, part of my purpose is to speak. I love to speak. But how that can look like can have many forms. It can have the form of a podcast. It can have a form of, teaching in a yoga class. It can have a form of doing a workshop, writing a book. It's different part of speaking, but it's part of my purpose. So I think once you found what you really love and what inspires you, it can take many forms, and that can change.
Yeah, but it's also that, I think, being open to learn and evolve. And I love that. So such a natural thing in the yoga world. I don't know any yoga teacher who doesn't want to do another training in some way, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's the same in the online business world. And I appreciate, I love that so much. I really wholeheartedly embrace that when you think about so many normal jobs where, for example, a surgeon, oh yeah, you finished your university, maybe you'd like once in a while you do like another training, but otherwise you just believe you're the god and you're the good at it and the best, and you don't really look at things like, I don't know, working with people who have traumas or something. So maybe it's changing a little bit. I hope it would change. I also hope that maybe that whole world of online education is opening up people to that, to really start learning and not stop learning because you have your university exams, right? But do more like inner work, anything, anything really.
Yeah, that's so true. I think it's also a mindset, right? I think it's a mindset of society that, once you've finished your exam, you've done your university, check, done that. Now I'm a doctor, or now I'm a teacher or whatever, and now I'm like can kind of rest back. But I think it's so important that we keep learning, and then we keep that open mind and this learning mindset, and then, an open mindset constantly to evolve. And I mean, even in some jobs, it's required. For example, my mom, she's a therapist, and she's required to do some continuous studies. And I think that's really important that we keep learning in our field and personally, and don't, settle into, like now I'm done, now I'm good. And I think, it's definitely important to keep learning. And at the same time, I also think that's a great danger in this optimization field, optimizing everything, in your life. So I think it's also like about finding the balance.
Oh, that's a good point. Yes. Yeah. This feeling that you're never good enough. Yeah. I think.
Yeah, because there's endless trainings you can take and endless courses.
I remember once I did an energy retreat in Bali, and on the last day, our teacher, she actually channeled some Balinese ghosts. I know it sounds very woo-woo, but it felt very real in that moment, right? So some spirits, basically. So the spirits talked through her, and her voice changed and everything. It was really amazing. But anyway, what they said was like that, it was amazing. We learned all those things. They loved listening to us, but that we shouldn't forget that we are already magnificent as we are. We are already perfect as we are. And I think that's such a powerful, beautiful message, no matter if you believe in the spirits or not, right? But that message is so important. You are already magnificent and perfect as you are. Because that's how we are born, right?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. I think, as we said before, on one hand, I think on the human level, I like to explain it this way, that, our human self needs evolution. Our human part, that is imperfect, that has shadows, that has an ego, that thinks in separation, that is greedy, that is envious, all these parts we don't like about ourselves, but we all have them. And I think this part needs evolution. Yeah, it needs transformation and work. And then there's the part which is divine, which is our soul, which is our essence, how we are born, just pure beings of unconditional love. But and I think we are both, we are these two-folded beings of being one part completely perfect. And I can see it in my little son, that this, what we speak about in the spiritual world, about your unconditional love in your essence, like that can sound a bit, like romantic, esoteric, but it's true. You like when you look at a baby, at a child, like you can see they are in the essence love, and they're so pure. And each one of us was that baby, you know, that I'm looking at every day. And I can see that, you know, and now he's starting to develop more of a personality and more of an ego, which is equally important in this world. We need an identity. We need some kind of personality, because we cannot introduce ourselves and go like, hi, I'm unconditional love. I'm love and light. That's who I am. Like, you know, so we need a name. We need, you know, some boundaries. And I think it's both, you know, we are both. We are this perfect being, magnificent already, that needs no improvement, that needs no yoga teacher trainings. And at the same time, there's this parts that, you know, keeps us suffering. There are these parts in our lives. And when we look at the state of the world, we can clearly see that the world is not driven by love and light, that the world is driven by shadows of people, of egos, and of greed. And that creates suffering. And I think the world definitely needs, the inner work, right? That is the yoga path, or that is the path of, you know, whatever you want to do, is coaching, therapy, healing work. So I think, yeah, both is needed, that we remember both or do both at the same time. And one is not saying the other is not there, you know? So, I really love the sentence. It's one of my favorites. Your ego and your soul are holding hands.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yes. And I think that fits really in your work. I mean, you're teaching yoga, doing yoga teacher training. So let's talk a little bit about your online yoga studio. I think you started it way before the pandemic already, right? Or did it start with the pandemic?
Well, so I had I was part of the yoga school of my ex-partner in Bali. We just came together and he opened that studio. So we kind of from the start started that studio together. And, you know, since then, and then our relationship ended, and that was really, really sad for me for many reasons, but also mainly because we had the studio and a community together. And since then I was always dreaming to have my own studio. And then I actually looked in Munich, in Germany, at different places, and
before that in Bali.
Yeah, before that in Bali, even thinking about, oh my God, if I think about it, like opening my own studio in Bali, you know, as a woman is like crazy. Okay, but could have worked, who knows? But and then I looked in Munich, you know, and looked at different places. Nothing felt right and crazy expensive, you know. And then we had one studio just right before the pandemic. I think the pandemic started like March, April, 2020. And then I think we looked at a studio in January, and we wanted to have it, and it was 10,000 euros a rent a month. Ooh. And we didn't get it. And like looking back, I'm still praying, like saying big thank you, we didn't get it. I mean, imagine like right before the pandemic, signing up for a contract of 10,000 euros a month. That's like insane. So luckily we didn't get that. And then the pandemic hit, and my partner, Marcel, before even the pandemic happened, he said like, hey, what is about an online studio? And I was like, not sure this is gonna work. You know, people really like to go to a physical studio. It's all about the whole atmosphere in the studio, you know, with the statue and the incense and, you know, and, but then he said, it might work. So, but then, you know, COVID happened, and then I started giving some online classes, and they were really popular. Like I remember I gave my first like live, I mean, before I did some YouTube videos and Facebook lives, but you know, not regularly. And then I started doing that on Zoom. And then the whole Zoom thing started. And then I think on Easter Sunday, I had 1,000 people in my class.
Oh
and
my God.
Like, what the fuck? You know, like what? And then I continued to give classes, and people were super, really longing for this, first time with the lockdown and everything. And then I realized, well, I cannot teach all this alone. I don't have the capacity, because I was at the same time, I was writing a book, and it was like, so I was like, oh, I need support. Well, I educated some teachers already. So great, and I saw also on Instagram, some teachers started also doing some yoga by themselves, but which is really hard to get an audience by yourself. And they also didn't have the right equipment, or not professional sound equipment. And so I was like, well, maybe that's a chance. Let's think about it, to start an online studio. And yeah, and that was like an exciting step, because it's also a step of letting go for me personally, to say like, okay, because I can perfectly do it by myself, do it alone. But then going like, well, let's share what I have built, also the audience that I've built on social media the last 10 years. So let's share this, and let's give other teachers also a platform. And, and that's also a way for me to step back a little bit, and to give a platform for other teachers, and to share the audience. And yeah, and then we did that, and we invested quite a lot of money in very professional equipment, and my partner supported me in getting into the technical part of it, and he really digged into like which camera, which headset, and lights. And so we equipped every teacher. We started with 4 teachers, including me, 2.5 years ago. And yeah, and then we grew, and now we are 6 teachers, and or seven, I think. And yeah, but 1 is going into the baby pause. That's why I'm already like, oh, but yeah. So now we have 7 teachers. We have a big audience. We are one of the most successful studios, online studios in the whole German speaking room in DACH. So Germany, Switzerland, and Austria. And yeah, it's running really well, and it's really successful. And even after the whole lockdown ended, and even after the shops opened again, and we were allowed to go outside, and still we have a huge community, a big fan base, and that we've built over the last couple of years. I'm really proud of that. It's amazing.
I love it. Yes. I think it's an amazing space that you created there, and also that you share it. So are the teachers, they did your yoga teacher training, or do you also have teachers who just apply to teach, or?
No. So for me, something that became really clear for me, opening up the yoga studio of my ex-partner in Bali, and, I did so many yoga classes, joined myself, so many classes in different studios around the world. And I can say like something I see as a, success asset is to have a red line, to have a concept, a clear vision for your studio, and not teaching whatever style. So here a little bit of yin, here a little bit of kundalini, here a little bit of vinyasa, here a little bit of ashtanga, here a little bit. So like for me, it feels like a huge buffet, and people who don't know anything about the yoga style, just, bumping from one style to another, like feeling maybe a little bit lost, and they don't know what to expect, people who never did yoga before. And so for me, it was very important to have a very clear line and a very clear vision for what we're standing for in the studio. And that works. That's one of our success assets. And that was also for the studio in Bali, that a very clear line. So we're teaching traditional tantric hatha yoga. We're teaching in alignment with the Ayurvedic rules, with the Ayurvedic guidelines for a balanced life. That means, for example, in the mornings, we teach energetically awakening practices. And in the evening, calming and balancing practices, grounding practices. So in the morning, we call it sun yoga, and in the evening, it's moon. And that's in alignment with the rhythms of the day. And it's also in alignment with our nervous system. So many people struggling going to sleep at night. But it's not surprising if you do anything aggravating in the evening, like going hardcore, I don't know, into a fitness studio, pumping weights, or going into a very sweaty vinyasa class is shooting up your nervous system into the sympathetic nervous system, which is related to our go, 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 with our fight and flight response. So means you come home and you're totally awake. That means you cannot sleep, and that makes no sense. So it's way better, now I think the word sleeping routine, sleeping hygiene is now a little bit, people knowing these kind of words, but Ayurveda is teaching this for thousands of years, that we actually should live in alignment with nature. Means, when the sun goes down, the roosters start sleeping, right? So we also should shoot our computers down when the sun goes down, and with the starting off the electrical light, we can stay up, till the middle of the night, but that's not good for our sleeping rhythm. So we are definitely teaching in alignment with these principles. We're also teaching a holistic way of yoga. Means in every class you experience breathing, you experience meditation, which is the goal of yoga actually. So many classes I've attained really were missing on the breathing and the meditation part, which is essential for yoga and to experience a yogic state. So Shavasana, of course. And so it's not only about the physical, but also more about the energetical. And that needs a specific training. So yes, most of the teachers did the training with me, or at least they did a 50-hour training. So this system is not coming from me personally. I'm a student of Yoga Rupa Rodstrika, who is a master teacher and who's teaching this style since, 40 years, I think. He's now in his 60s. And so he's teaching this style. He has, other teachers who he trained, and so for me, it's important that we all speak the same language. But we also, integrating like yin yoga or meditation and pranayama. And there I'm also open to receive people who maybe did a yin training or a specific meditation training. And we also giving workshops. Mainly for me, it's really important that people have this holistic view on yoga and the understanding that yoga is not a sport. It's not a gymnastic. The asana is a very small part of yoga, and it's really about liberation yoga. It's about the liberation of suffering. It's letting go of everything that makes you suffer and remembering who you are, what you are in your essence. And that's the goal of yoga. And if there is no part in the yoga practice where there's a moment of silence, a moment of contemplation, breathing, then I think it's really missing out on the essential parts.
Oh, yes. I love that you have such a clear niche and direction for your studio. And then you also enhance it. Like in your podcast, that's not really sharing yoga videos or how-to videos, and you don't really do that. Do you do a lot of like free yoga content still, or are you really focused now on podcasts, your books, talking?
I do once a month, 20-minute yoga shorty for YouTube, like a very, for people who like just have 20 minutes and just quickly, want to release for their shoulders or focusing on opening the hips. And I also like to, that's a little gift for me, that I give for people, and which is free. My podcast is totally free. So, and then, my vision for the next, or what I like to focus on for the next few years is definitely, the podcast is something I really love doing. I'm thinking in my mind about some, formats that can also move into it, or like that can transform into the podcast, maybe a live podcast, or, bring a little bit more interaction into that. And I'm preparing my next book. That's really exciting.
When is it coming out?
Yeah, it's not even written.
Okay.
It's not even written. Well, let's see. I'm planning on maybe end of 2024. Yeah.
It's a long process. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a long process. I mean, in the meantime, there's coming out a yoga box. Now in March is coming out a box.
Yeah, because I remember there was a book, but it's already basically in production and just like coming out.
I mean, I've written this two books, and now we're launching a box which is related to the first book, which is cards. Basically cards where you can create your own yoga practice with these cards. And the special thing about my first book is that it's really speaking about the energetic effects of the asana. Not only like, I don't know, it stretches your hamstrings, the forward fold. No, it's also calming your nervous systems, aggravating your parasympathetic nervous system. It's opening your first chakra, speaking to your first and second chakra, and stuff like that, So it's more about the energetic effect of the asana than just only like what it does to your body. So what is it also doing to your mind and your energetic body? Yeah. So, and then we bring out this box, which I think is amazing. And I would have loved to have a box like this when I started my first yoga teacher training, like where are really the main asanas, not all, thousands of variations we have in, of asanas, but like the main asanas, and just like, okay, cool. I can put these in this order. I can create my own little sequence with some cards, which can be fun, or I can use the cards to prepare my own yoga practice or my class. And yeah, so it's a fun thing.
I remember when we launched your first online course, I helped you with that. And looking back, it's so inspiring how you really embraced like all those new things, right? That are a little bit outside of your comfort zone, like for everybody. I think filming the videos, setting it up, choosing a course platform, promoting it. It was like a completely different language that you have to learn, basically moving to another country, probably the same. How can you share something about that journey as an entrepreneur as well as a business owner, how you evolved there?
Yeah, I would love to. I'm actually also preparing my next online course to the chakra book. So related to the chakra book, there's something I'm actually starting next week, recording this next huge online course, and I'm like, oh, yeah. So I think being an entrepreneur, I've been an entrepreneur, self-sustained since ever, since I'm left school. So, but it definitely took years to get into self-organization, self-planning, self-discipline. It's nothing that comes supernatural to me. Some people say like, and it's very funny when people say that to me, oh, Wanda, some of your strength is you're so structured and disciplined. And then I always have to smile because that's something I hardly trained. That's nothing that comes natural to me. Naturally, I'm more like this emotional butterfly that, goes from flower to flower and just like creatively flows around. Like that's more me, So I had to really, find my way, and I'm still adapting, what's really working, what's not working. Putting on priority lists and goals and, little goals along the way to the big goal and, stuff like that. And getting structured and prioritizing, that's still something like that I'm struggling with because I have so many ideas and I'm so creative. And I think many people have this, like from the Ayurvedic perspective, like I'm a Vata Pitta. So I have a lot of air, means a lot of, mental energy, creative energy. and I have also a lot of drive, but that means that I can also, throw my energy into too many directions and not stay focused on one thing. And then nothing gets done, right? So I really had to learn to discipline myself to stay with one thing and, pull it through and do it till the end, and not like get lost in here and there and writing here a little and there a little. And, so that's really something I had to train myself and had to stick with. And it's not always easy because, as I said, I'm naturally different. So, for example, writing a book is not as romantic as it sounds, at least not for me. I don't know how it is to write a novel. Like, I always imagine like writers, sitting on an open window next to the ocean, overlooking the ocean, like, having the cup of tea, like being super. But for me, at least, it was not like that. Like, I also I wrote 2 books, also nearly both in the pandemic time, which was, even more internalized. But I really felt like you just have to go to your desk and write, even though you don't feel inspired. You're not feeling like writing, but you have to, because you have a deadline and you have to just get it done. And that's just, I think it's one of the also success rules, if you can say, is to stay committed and to keep going, and no matter what, and even in times of you don't feel like it, and there are many moments where you don't feel like it. and just find some way of inspiration inside of you or motivating yourself. And so I really grew into it. And also now my business grew over the last, I would say, 3 years a lot. And also meaning I started to invest in people who work with me. And I have now, I think, I have 6 teachers who work for me and 5 freelancer who work with me. So 11 people in total. And I'm continuing to find. I'm just in the process of job interviews with other people who can support my business, because I'm realizing, I'm a young mom as well. My baby is 1.5 years, and I have limited time and energy, and I have to be very smart in, when I have time, what to put it into and what to say yes to and what to say no to, and be more smart with my energy levels, with my time resources, capacities. So being more realistic about that, and also outsourcing, really getting help. And I think that's some of the, I think we also talked about it, that investing early on, speaking from business perspective, into people who help you grow your business and support you in what you're doing, that you can focus on what is your strength and not doing all the things you cannot do. Like, for example, like I took such a long time, and I think if I wouldn't have invested in an accountant, I would be in jail today. Like, honestly, like I am so bad, with numbers and invoices. And I mean, who loves that? But there are people who love that. Like, they are like,
I know, they become accountants.
Yeah, they become accountants. Like, it's amazing. Like, I have so much respect for people like that, who like just love to transfer money back and forth. And, it's amazing. So I really found an amazing woman who I'm working with now since 4 years. And I don't know why I did that even earlier in my life. That's like, she's doing all, the invoice stuff and the bank transfers and paying bills and paying Steuer. What is
taxes?
That? The taxes, my favorite topic. So that's great, and that's like one of the things I hate. So great that somebody else is doing it, and she has a good job with me. So that's also great. She's happy with that. So I think it's important to get help early on in your own business.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to, I mean, it goes step by step. So when you're just getting started, not get overwhelmed by that mountain or look at somebody else's business, right? You didn't start with where you are today with 6 people teaching and 5 other people working for you. You started by yourself and started growing your social media, and then followed like the YouTube videos, and then came the podcast, the studio, not to think you have to do everything at once.
Right. And also do more of what you really love, and step by step also, as you said, you don't have to do it all. So for example, if you don't like YouTube, then just don't do it. Like, it's not a necessity to do YouTube, for example. And yeah, and really because there's so many opportunities, I think, as an entrepreneur, as a self-sustaining yoga teachers, things you can do, and that are possibilities. And to really choose wisely what you want to put your energy into and what to focus on from the different standpoints, what brings money, what really brings you joy. I think that's even more important than money.
Yeah.
Because the joy and the money will follow the joy, and people will feel when you're passionate about something and when you're really good at something, and then the money will come. And then also from a strategy standpoint, some things are just strategically wise to do. Maybe they're not the greatest joy in your life, but maybe they're good to do sometimes, Yeah. So I think these are, at least for me, these are some parameters I look at when I make decisions, and yeah. And as you say, slowly. And, it's not so long ago. I mean, it's now, I think it's like 7 years ago in Bali. I was sitting, and I remember that very clearly, sitting by myself, heartbroken in a jungle hut, doing my yoga practice, crying, feeling alone, not knowing what the future holds, not knowing where to get money from. I had big struggles with the working permit in Bali. And and it was just a moment in my life where I was like, fuck, like I have no idea how this is going to continue. And it's not so long ago, 7 years, it's like this. And yeah, so wherever you are right now in your life, I think when you have like, a dream, something that's in your heart, to be patient and to also to be consistent with what you're doing, and to be positive about it, and keep doing what you love. And I think when we do what we love, we are also good in that. Most of the time. Yes.
No, I totally agree. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I think when you don't have joy, the money will follow, and you're not going to be able to be consistent, right? But I also think sometimes you have to look at why you don't want to do something. And sometimes it's just because it's like outside of your comfort zone, or fear is holding you back. So I think that awareness needs to be there as well, because otherwise it's just easy to, oh, no, yeah, I'm not doing that. But maybe you would really grow. It's like, like it's this journey of self-discovery and evolution, I think, being an entrepreneur as well. Just to try things out for a few months before you say, no, thank you, that's not for me.
For sure. I mean, I have had to do, or I'm still have to do many things I feel not super comfortable with, or not familiar with yet. For example, what it means to have, they're not employed, but, people I work with on a regular basis, freelancers, and how to give very clear briefings and how to handle people who work with you. And then I had a fixed employee also, and I had to learn in which way, how to be a boss, basically, like to other people. Like that's something very new to me. That's because I was my own boss for so long, and then suddenly people working for me, and I need to give feedback, how to give feedback in a gentle, constructive way. Also to my teachers, I'm also, mentoring my teachers. I'm giving feedback regularly I look at their videos, I give feedback, and how to do that in a way that the other person can receive it. And, all of that I had to learn, and I'm getting better in it. And I'm much better in that's also relates to communication skills and how we say things and empathy and so there's so much to learn when you work with people and in a business, and something I'm learning. And and what you said, about the online course, for example, I think that's also something that felt very unfamiliar for me in the beginning. And and I think it's also something that to organize yourself in a way to, have help from people who can help you with things you don't feel so comfortable with, maybe. For example, if you have to write a text about the online course and you don't feel, wow, I'm not sure if that text is great. Maybe you have someone in your, you don't need to right away find a freelancer, but maybe you have a friend or, who's good in writing, and or a mom or something. And then you can ask like, hey, mom, can you reread my text? Or can you, ask people, look at different online courses. How are other people doing it? And, step by step, like, growing into this new thing.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing about your journey. And I think it's so, I'm excited about your future for sure. I think there's so many opportunities that we just didn't have just like 10 years ago. And to really, and I think there are new things coming and opening up all the time, and possibilities to be creative and inspired and share really in a completely new way. So I'm really excited to see what's going to happen, what's going to come. I'm for sure going to follow you. So where can people go to learn more about you and to follow you?
Yeah, thank you so much, Susanne. I really also love to share about this, this business part of being a yoga teacher. Also because I think there are some beliefs. I don't know, maybe you have spoken about that belief in your podcast as well, about that belief, we should not earn money with yoga, or that's unethical, or whatever, things like that. And I think that's bullshit. I think that's bullshit for the reason that yoga is a path of self-knowledge, of understanding yourself better. And there are experts in that field, like in any field are, like, you go to a doctor when you have a broken knee. You go to a health consultant if you want to know something about food, So there are people who did a lot of trainings and studied deeply into this path of yoga. So why should these people not are allowed to earn money with what they can do best with their profession, like other people do that are professionalized in a specific field, and support and help people with yoga and bring healing to people. And it can do so much for people. And I think that's an old belief. I think, and I can speak for myself, but I think as long as we do something, like for me, yoga is definitely a way of service. Yes, I need to sustain my living with that also, but I'm also doing service. For example, giving content completely free, like, sitting myself down, recording podcasts about yoga philosophy for 2 hours, spending money for a cutter who's cutting my podcast, that's all expenses I have, like doing free yoga classes. I'm also donating every month a lot of money to animals, to, nature, I'm supporting a Portuguese mom right now, right here in Portugal, with a monthly fee, so she can have a babysitter. So my mindset is really about, service. And I think as long as we are not greedy, and as long as we keep the balance about also giving to others, I think there's nothing wrong with earning money with yoga or with coaching, or and I think it's about balance, right? I think but that's a whole different conversation we could go deeper into. But I just wanted to make that statement. And I enjoy to speak about it. And because I think it's very natural also to wanting to be successful and wanting to have abundance, and that's okay. That's
all right, I think. And
and
especially as a woman, it's so important, right? So it's so easy to say that typical woman professions were healing or like nursing or teaching, that you don't choose that for the money, so it doesn't need to get paid well.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So I think it's a bigger patriarchy issue actually as well behind that.
Definitely.
And it's something it's a message that I talk about all the time, and that I really want to enforce, is that it's okay to be ambitious, and you deserve financial abundance, and then you can share it abundantly, everything. But it's also an energy exchange money. Yeah.
Yes. 100%.
So stop playing small.
Exactly. 100%. I agree.
So now we could talk another hour.
Exactly. Let's do another podcast about that.
I think that's another episode. Yes.
Yeah, that's definitely a big episode. So, but you ask where people can find me. So people can find me on my website, wandabadwal.com. So maybe you can put it in the show notes. There you find things I offer, like my books, retreats. I give a live retreat this year in Portugal in October. I'm really looking forward. It's going to be a self-care women's retreat, so just for women. We're looking forward to that. I'm giving my yoga teacher training. There's a waiting list. It starts in April. And my online studio, of course, regular live classes I give. At the moment, I teach twice a week live. And
the podcast. So listen into Wanda's podcast. It's in German, so it's only for German
language.
Speak.
There are also some English episodes, but it's mainly in German.
But I think you had one episode with Yoga Girl, right? For example.
Yeah, just recently. As I said, I also invite international guests once in a while. And recently I had Rachel Brathen, Yoga Girl, on the show. That was amazing. Really beautiful conversation.
So we're going to link to that from the show notes as well.
Yes. Let's do that.
Thank you so much for being here, Wanda. It was really so lovely to talk to you and catch up. And all the best to Portugal.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invite, Susanna. It was really, really lovely to talk. And looking forward to see you soon again. And thank you all for listening and spending time with us today.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Blissful Biz podcast. If you like the show, please leave a review on iTunes. This would mean the world to me. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast to never miss a new episode. To learn more about how to work with me one-on-one, my courses and membership, or to get instant access to freebies, workshops, and more, go to susannereiker.com right now. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next time.